Welcome to Clown World. I'm here with Nick Dixon. We're going to talk about some topical things that are in the news in a manner similar to a show we recently did on GB News, but it's different enough that we don't need to pay any royalties. So this is Clown World. I'm here with Nick Dixon, a famous comedian who's got an excellent Substack and a podcast with our other friend Paul Cox, and they call it Dixon Cox because, man, that's a great title for How are you doing?
I'm well. Thanks for having me, Leo. This is an exciting new project. As you say, nothing like the show we used to do. Though I tried to get you on a live stream, also nothing like the show we used to do, and you said you didn't have good enough internet, which I thought was an embarrassment for a big YouTuber like you.
Yeah, but that's the thing, man. The last 3 years I've been living in Richmond, and everybody thinks Richmond's this swanky, posh place with all the amenities you could possibly want. And it's not. We're in a grade 2 listed building, so we had the original Elizabethan fibre coming into the, I think in those days the internet was delivered down clay pipes. So the internet was so slow. It was literally mice carrying the data each way. And yeah, now I've moved out to the countryside. I'm beaming to some, satellite somewhere, and it's really fast. This isn't even like fiber to the property. This is a cell phone tower.
I can't wait till you just have a compound out in the country selling brain force pills, a lot of weaponry. Pick up brain force. This is going to sort your brain out. There's like constant promotions. No one's seen you for 5 years, but they go out to the compound and it's just you've got all these weird people working for you, guns, dry food. That's what...
Well, man, it's funny. I've seen. We're gonna get to the topical stories in a moment, but man, I've seen the Islamist training camps in Buckinghamshire and stuff. It's like you take a wrong turn driving to some picturesque little village, and all of a sudden you're in this jihadist training camp, and they're all regimented in their rows, wearing their ball gowns with their AK-47s. They might not have AK-47s. This is England after all. But I don't understand why, the establishment is just oh yeah, no, it's fine. Oh, it's just a jihadist training camp. Don't worry about that. It's just what they do. You know what I mean? It's like, well, if I wanted to get some sort of fucking military training camp set up, I'm pretty sure they'd come down on me like a ton of bricks.
I love the idea. You're in the country, driving down a country path. If you accidentally take the left instead of the right, you end up at the jihadi training camp. But if you go right, you end up at the Leo Curse compound. And turns up at the wrong one.
Yeah, and it's like, it's like I just wanted to go to a farm shop. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 10 minutes later, you're a jihad. You're like you've joined ISIS. A ginger guy goes to a farm shop, gets it badly wrong.
It's like that meme of the which path, young Western man.
Oh yeah, which way?
Anyway, it's been.
Can I just say just very quickly, nickdixon.net for my Substack. Just before
nickdixon.net, and it's doing really well. You've got a David Starkey video that's done. It's on 400,000.
Oh yeah, on my YouTube as well. Yeah, my YouTube is just Nick Dixon, and that's 350,000 with the David Starkey video. Yeah, so that's really good, man. And it's all about how you put it together. People think it's just a guest, but it's the whole thing. 356,000. Why am I underselling it? Incredible. So yeah, it's starting to do well. You know how it is. That show we did took up a huge amount of energy for me. Anyway, it didn't seem to bother you as much, and now it's freed me up to do all this other stuff.
Yeah, like this, which hopefully is going to be. Hopefully going to be as popular as the David Starkey thing. So yeah, it's been an insane week for news. I make YouTube videos, and normally there's one or two things in the news. I'm like, damn, I got to do a video about that. And this week there's been so many things in the news. I've got to get Nick Dixon online to talk about it. Graham Linehan, a fellow comedian, sometimes colleague of ours, he was arrested landing back in Heathrow for 3 tweets. And you sort of expect that in Britain because we are essentially North Korea. Well, the Daily Mail ran a front page saying Britain is like North Korea. And I disagree. I think North Korea, you've got a much more cohesive society. There's no Pakistani Muslim gangs going around committing atrocities against children. There's a higher fertility rate. There's affordable housing. So there's, I think we've got some way to go to aspire to being North Korea. But the people on the left in this country seem pretty wildly supportive of a comedian being locked up over tweets.
Yeah, imagine if he'd done 4 tweets. What's the punishment for that? 3 tweets is 5 armed guards. 4 tweets, you just gun him down at the airport as soon as he steps off. That is insane, isn't it? And everyone knows that's insane. And if you're one of the people reporting him, you've strategically made a big mistake there. But they're not really thinking strategically. They're just thinking hate, 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 report, report. You know, they just have this pathological hatred of people like Graham. But actually, if you're thinking a bit more strategically, you'd be like, hang on, this is going to look incredibly bad if anyone follows up on this. And it's just gone down incredibly badly because it's so absurd. And his blood pressure went up to 200. He had to go to the hospital. And it's just so bad. And you kind of imagine vaguely that we were beyond this because, you know, Andrew Doyle's written this book, The End of Woke. We feel like we've moved into the immigration era. You know, there's always a different current thing, and it was COVID, and then it was woke, then it was COVID, then it was perhaps Ukraine, which I know you like, but then it was like immigration. But I suppose woke had its own subsets as well. You had like the BLM moment, you had the trans moment. But you kind of felt like that we're done with this stuff. But of course we aren't because all the legislation is still there. Nothing's changed. No one's unpicked any of the laws. And if you look at what the government said about it, a couple of things. One, they did this repulsive thing where they said, West Streeting said, oh, we shouldn't be policing tweets. We should just be policing the streets. It's like, yeah, but you're the government. So where are the people getting these ideas? It was pretend. And
that's the thing. Yeah, every government always says, "Oh, there's nothing you can do." Even the Tories before, when they tried to resolve the small boats crisis, they were like, "Oh, well, we tried with the Rwanda thing, but there's nothing we can do." It's like, well, who's in charge then? Who's making the decisions?
Do you know what? Stephen Barrett on a forthcoming podcast said something brilliant to me about this. He said all that Rishi did, he went to the court, and the court said, you can't deport them for this, 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 and this reason. Here are the treaties. And he's like, that judge gave the perfect blueprint for how you get out of this stuff. He's like, you can't deport them to Rwanda because there's this treaty, there's this loophole, there's this one. And he's like, okay, they're the ones I need to get out of. But no one's done it. Rishi just didn't have the will, of course. No one's had the will to do it. So yeah, like you say, they pretend they can't do anything. But they also use, in my opinion, this kind of 90s rhetoric. So they pretend that we're in a normal world because they know that basically people like the world before. So they say like, oh, we're very proud of our history of free speech. It's like, right, why are 5 armed guards arresting a beloved comedy writer? And it's just like, but they know they can't say, yes, we love that. But that's the truth, that they love that and want that.
Yeah.
But they have to pretend we're still in the normal world because they know that no one likes what they're creating, this sort of Chinese panopticon thing. So, but look at what they said in the Telegraph. In a statement, a Home Office spokesman said, it is vital that the police take a common sense and consistent approach to tackling hate speech and online harms, and the law must protect the most vulnerable while continuing the proud British tradition of free speech. Well, the proud British tradition of free speech doesn't include hate speech laws or online harm. These are made up things, especially the hate speech. Like, you can't have hate speech laws and have the proud tradition of free speech. That's a choice. You can't be like, yes, both. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
It's just some comedy sketch where he says, yes, I want this, and this. It's like, no, that's a choice. They're like, we want to protect hate speech and free speech. Hate speech isn't a thing. It's certainly not a crime.
Yeah, and a lot of these laws, the hate speech laws, all this sort of stuff, they've come in because, you know, around 30 years ago or 20 years ago, the government decided, Blair and Brown decided, well, multiculturalism is the best idea. We're going to import people who are going to vote Labour, so let's do this. Let's open the borders. It's going to stimulate the economy. It's going to be great. But then you've got, instead of having this like homogenous country where everybody's got a sort of, you know, a pre-political allegiance, you might have people voting Labour, voting Tory, but, you know, everybody's British and rallies to the same flag at the end of the day. Instead of that, you got all these different sects and creeds and countries, and people really cling. We didn't do any sort of Chinese style sort of you know, like they do with the Uyghur Muslims, where they sort of force them to become, you know, have allegiance to China as a whole. You know, we didn't do anything like that. Not that maybe picking the Chinese treatment of the Uyghur Muslims isn't the best example, but, you know, there was no attempt. We just allowed people to keep their culture. If anything, we suppressed the native culture to sort of elevate newcomers' cultures. And so these laws that have come through, the hate speech laws, all this sort of stuff, is just there to try and sort of keep a lid on any sort of conflict between these different cultures, when it would have been much easier back in the day to just be like, listen, you're British now, you got to wear trousers, none of this ball gown bullshit. You've got to, you know, you go to a church now, you speak English, you don't rape kids with your uncle, like just basic sort of British values like that. Or they used to be British values.
Basic values we all pledge allegiance to. Yeah, I mean, by the way, I've just remembered what I was thinking of. It's Rain Man, when he's like, yeah, I want to go home, stay with Charlie Bear. But it's like, no, those are choices. I was like, you know, and I said they want to say, we want to protect hate speech and free speech. Like, no, those are choices. You can't have, it's explained to it's the Rain Man government. He has to explain to him, you can't have both. Those are two different options. what you're saying reminds me of Singapore, maybe more than China. But Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew looked at our high trust society and he said, "Wow, that's amazing. They pay for the paper, they only take one, and all this kind of thing." And he's like, "That's never going to work in Singapore, but we want to achieve that through force. That's going to have to be our best bet." So what you end up with, multiculturalism seems to lead inevitably to authoritarianism.
Yeah.
So but everyone's little thing has to be respected. Instead of, like you say, just fit into the overriding culture, it seems to be we have distinct groups. They all have to have their thing. It's sort of kind of standoff, and it's regulated with increasing crackdowns on freedoms because one person's freedom encroaches on someone else. One person wants to draw a certain profit. The other people say you can't. Well, those two. Well, in that case, only one can really win.
Yeah.
Most of them are in kind of negotiation where everyone loses.
Yeah, and I think we'll eventually get to the situation where it's just going to be, might is right, and whoever's got the biggest, strongest, either, the biggest bloc in parliament or just the biggest, militarily strong bloc, is going to force it through. So, one day the group that doesn't like certain books being burnt or certain religious icons being drawn is going to be the biggest, and they're going to make the rules. They kind of already are. And I think another thing with this, the Graham Linehan thing, is the sort of trans activists have taken control of our institutions or embedded their rules in the institutions because people listen to, for a long time, we've had like special interest groups talking to governments, charities, NGOs, stuff like that, talking to governments and presenting themselves as experts. So Stonewall go to the government and say, "Oh, well, we're the experts on LGBTQ stuff, transgender ideology, stuff like that." And the government's like, "Well, great, you can help us make these rules." So then Stonewall makes these rules. They're not experts. They're very specific sort of pressure groups. They've got a specific single interest. They advocate for one side of the thing. They didn't get anybody else to argue about the other side. They didn't get feminist J.K. Rowling or anything to say, well, wait a minute, if you have these big lumpy blokes going into women's changing rooms, playing on a 12-year-old girls' netball team, or going into women's prisons, there's another side to this. There's women's rights as well. So I think the problem is, and I know, people like, I think it was Michael Gove was slammed for deriding experts, for saying we've heard enough from experts. But the thing is, the experts aren't experts. They're just pressure groups.
Yeah, that was a key moment when in the arrest, here we go. Linehan says he mentioned trans people, meaning the police officer. I asked him what he meant by the phrase. He says, people who feel their gender is different than what was assigned at birth. I said, assigned at birth, our sex isn't assigned. He called it semantics. I told him he was using activist language. So assigned at birth, you're already in the frame of the ideology. You're already, you're an ideological you're part of the apparatus of the state, and their prevailing ideology is woke and critical race theory and gender nonsense. And you said it there, assigned at birth, incredibly recent nonsense bollocks phrase, which has been used for about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Cop says to him it's semantics, but the whole thing is semantics. Yeah. The only reason he's there is because of semantics, because he won't call a man a woman, is why he's getting guns pointed at him. So it's like, this is a semantic argument because the left's obsessed with language. So it's a language war. So it's semantics. No, it's not semantics, moron. The reason he got arrested was semantics, but sex being assigned at birth is far more fundamental. I mean, the other thing is the police chief has just been passing it off, saying the police have to do this.
Oh, yeah.
Passing it back, saying it's the police. Isn't that completely absurd?
Well, yeah, totally. I mean, they've got so many laws on the books. I mean, like under the Blair government, at the height of the sort of Islamo-terror mania, the Blair government passed these laws that have never been used. They've never been used because they're kind of, and laws go into the books sometimes, and there's an assumption that they'll only be used for this purpose, and within 3 months they're being used for a completely different purpose. There's always mission creep with legislation, but these laws have never been used, as I understand it. And there's plenty of laws that should be used and previously were used, like the law. I mean, it's illegal to break into cars and nick $2,000 worth of camera gear. Not that I'm bitter, but that's something that's illegal. But if it happens to you, when it happened to me, I phoned up the police. I genuinely thought, because you want to talk about the trauma of being misgendered? Try being like in the middle of lockdown, like broke, no money coming in, and then you go down to your car and it's been smashed open and your stuff's been nicked because you're dumb enough that one night to leave it in your car. And so I phoned up the police thinking they're going to send down like guys in fucking trench coats and stuff to dust for prints. and take photos and put up tape and stuff. And I phoned up the police and they're like, "Do you want a crime reference number for your insurance?" It's like, no, I'm obviously not insured for whatever this is. I get the cheapest insurance I can. Like, and they almost thought it was like, they almost laughed, they scoffed when I was like, "Well, aren't you going to come down and try and find out who did it?" Whereas if it's something like this, like something to do with the left's language that has to be used, then they're all over it like a rash. And Mark Rowley saying, "Oh, well, there's laws, we have to do it." Absolute cop out.
I know they decide which ones to follow, and it is my favorite phrase, anarcho tyranny. And actually, my parents have heard me say it so much. They sent me an article. Alistair Heath Starmer's Britain is descending into anarcho tyranny, so it's reached the Telegraph. So anarcho tyranny has gone mainstream, and that's a classic example. Not solving actual crime, but solving thought crimes against innocent citizens. In this case, a celebrated comedy writer. And you can't even solve the crime because there isn't one, but cracking down on the innocent. And we live in this anarcho tyranny world. So strange, isn't it? I never quite know why. Like, is it because it's just easier to do? Why is it that states end up in anarcho tyranny? Even Samuel Francis, who coined the term in the early 90s, didn't quite know why it happens. But you have criminals.
It's strange, isn't it? Like it's like with the Southport when the Southport attack happened. I was fully expecting Keir Starmer to come out and be like, "Oh, we understand that everybody's furious that this happened. These are the steps we're going to take to make sure no British kids are killed by a Rwandan ever again." Or something like that. Just acknowledge. And instead, he came out and he's like, it's like this visceral fucking hatred and absolute essential need to blame the native population. I think it comes back to the root of leftism and wokeism, because it's a sort of extension of Christianity. And that sort of horrible. This is the thing that always put me off about Christianity. That sort of, although I think it's more of a sort of British church thing than a Christian thing. But that whole trying to make yourself a martyr and carry the burden for everybody and everything's your fault. It's that kind of feeling just transposed to a different situation.
Maybe. I certainly don't blame Christianity for narco-tyranny, though. I mean, partly it's just easier. And narco-tyranny, in case anyone doesn't know, is where you allow criminals to run amok and you punish innocent citizens. It's a combination. We saw criminals literally popping champagne bottles let out early by Starmer in what I called Operation Arkham Asylum. And then you have Graham Linehan, 5 armed police. So it's textbook narco-tyranny, and it's so disgusting and insane. But they obviously want this because they keep doing it. We don't quite know why. Why does the system want this? I think about all the time. Dominic Cummings calls it the pathological system. I've started thinking of it in terms of this guy Stafford Beer, who had this formulation, a heuristic, I guess you'd say. The purpose of a system is what it does.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about intention. You say so. Under that heuristic, you say, okay, the purpose of our system is to enable the mass rape and torture of children, to allow illegal migrants to come in and commit endless crimes, and then to punish anyone who complains about it. And that's what its purpose is. So you kind of, because you could argue about intention all day. I don't think necessarily an individual in the system is going, "Oh, I'm going to do this today," but the system works on that logic and can't back out of it.
Yeah, it's like and also the individual incentives. I don't know if the system is working sort of as a big brain hole, but the individuals in the system. So Fraser Nelson even spoke about this, how the Pakistani grooming gangs were allowed to operate for noble intentions. People allowed them to operate for noble intentions. They were trying not to look racist, and I'm like, how is that a noble intention? That's like the worst intention in the world. Like, you'd rather let children be absolutely brutalized and traumatized and subjected to the worst crimes in humanity and sometimes killed and tortured. You'd rather do that than like you're worried about what people think about you. You know what I mean? And that's why I think there's going to be a big reassessment in how we like the fear of looking racist has done so much damage.
Yeah, I was disgusted when Tom Holland, that historian, said that, and he said, "Oh, but the intentions were noble." No, they weren't.
Oh, yeah. So it's Tom Holland, not Fraser Nelson. I got that wrong.
It usually is Fraser Nelson, to be fair. But not wanting to look racist. Yeah, I say that's not a noble intention. Yeah, that's looking out for. There's nothing noble about that at all. That's just covering your ass. That's all that. It's insane that that's even thought of as noble. But anytime even Farage does it, and I understand why he does it. But even I think it was in his giving evidence in the US yesterday, he was going, absolutely for the best intentions, I'm sure, but blah blah. And I'm thinking, No, it's not the best intentions. None of this is the Fabians who are running all this have a wolf in sheep's clothing as their emblem. They don't have the best intentions. They have literally the worst intentions. So the other thing is,
That's pretty wild to have as an emblem, isn't it? It's like, what should we pick? Should we openly reveal our intentions in our logo?
yeah, isn't that crazy? They changed it to a tortoise later because they're like, guys, this is a bit on the nose. I mean, the whole, and it's like a sinister wolf as well. The sheep is dead, and the wolf is like
Jesus.
black and evil, and the sheep is like, because the wolf is coming out of the dead sheep, and the sheep's like, but you can see how it would look like the sheep. Look at the emblem of this Fabian society. It's absolutely sinister and disgusting, and those are the
Yeah.
people. It's kind of like cartoonish, really. You're like, oh, we are just run by evil wolves in sheep's clothing who say they are. It's kind
Yeah.
of deranged, but what is the purpose of the Fabian Society ultimately? I think it's just evil. But the other thing you said something a couple of beats ago that made me think of this point. I can't remember what it was you said now, but to even get into the legal, oh yeah, individual incentives. To even get into the legal system, you have to pledge allegiance to diversity. So
Yeah.
there's these 6 tests. I don't know if it's like to be a lawyer or to be a judge or what it is.
To be
One
a
of them,
barrister, to be a
right,
KC.
right. Embarrassing. Yeah, one of them you have to say is that you believe in diversity and equity, or like I don't know if it's equality or
Which is a
what.
religious, it's a weird thing to do because it's not a sort of, it's not like believing in gravity. This is a sort of religious belief.
Yeah, and what was fascinating was in Lucy Connolly's case. I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but the judge in his sentencing remarks said it is a strength, and it's weird because there was a typo in it, but it is strength, but it is a strength of our society that it's diverse and inclusive. It's something like that phrase.
Yeah.
And I'm going, it's point four in the sentencing remarks, and I'm going, I know I sound like Rain Man, but I'm going, why is that in the sentencing remarks? It's a bizarre. It's like I'm sentencing you. You've done this and this. You said this tweet. Here's my judgment. And by the way, Chairman Mao is all wise. I'm sorry. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Even
yeah.
if you want to be, or I've gone like, and by the way, Aloha Akbar. What? And even if you want to be fair, you can even say, and by the way, Lucy Connolly must be punished. Christ is king. I'm sorry. Uh, it's like, why have you, it's the, in elite theory, it's called a political formula, which means the kind of slogan that motivates and runs that regime. So there, all the things I listed there are political formulas. Aloha Akbar is one, Christ is king is one, and so is uh, diversity is our strength. It's like you've made an ideological statement in the middle of a judgment,
Yeah.
thus proving you got all these people, these Dan Hodges people. What are you talking about? You're saying it's a conspiracy that Keir Starmer ordered all these people to do it. It's like, no, I'm saying that they're ideologically captured and they don't exist outside of the current paradigm.
Yeah, and it's a sort of more dangerous conspiracy because they're all sort of acting independently, don't see that they're in a conspiracy, but they're all captured by the same religion. And the danger about this sort of modern religion is it doesn't recognize itself as a religion. I think there's natural checks and balances on Christianity and stuff like that because people would be they knew they were going to church, they knew they were reading a book, they knew that it wasn't to be taken altogether literally all the time because it was stuff written on a stone by some guy in the desert 2000 years ago, whereas now people are like, oh, this is the experts have decided this. I remember when this started coming through, the diversity is a strength stuff started coming through in the public sector. I was working in Westminster Council, Haringey Council, working with the police and stuff. And then, we started having these training sessions and they'd be like, oh, so this is why diversity is a strength. And I was sort of sitting there being like, well, this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Like, what about Lebanon? What about the Balkans? We've just had like a big war in the Balkans because of diversity, because they weren't one homogenous block of people. So but then I was also thinking, well, they've got these are the experts. They must have worked this all out. They must, because I grew up in the 90s when you'd sort of defer to experts because they knew best before experts had been subsumed by this activist class.
I'd love to see that sitcom, Leo in a normal job.
Man.
It's in your email. You're like, this doesn't add up. Like just you, like a kind of Larry David figure, just going around. Just being, I can't imagine you but you're more normal than me. You've done normal jobs. I mean, I've done like data entry in bookshops and stuff, but I've barely held down a normal job. So I'm
Yeah.
far too insane. But you've had like normal jobs.
Yeah, I found it quite difficult having normal jobs because you got to be there for like ages and ages and ages and ages. You wake up, all you do is like go to work, and then by the time you get home, it's like dinner time.
Then you got to
And,
go back tomorrow, and you're like, how do I do my appointments?
and
Like,
5 days a
I've got
week.
to go to the bank. Like it's
Yeah, yeah. And like
not doing anything.
there's all this stuff, and this was working in the public sector, so it wasn't too hard working or anything. But then, like, I worked for a consultancy, and then I was like, and it also, man, it's not like it's just like doing comedy is like a fun thing to do. It's something you want to do. Doing GB News and stuff, it's a fun thing to do, or YouTube videos. Like, I enjoy it, I get absorbed in it and stuff. But when you're doing like a job, oh my God, like I've got man, I couldn't do it. I was so like, I don't know, so bad at it because I remember that like them try when I was working for the consultancy, I had like I got in trouble for I breached like NDAs, I breached the Official Secrets Act, and I breached something else that's bad as well. And then I remember the tribunal. I was like, man, I came out of it, I had like sweat patches like coming right across my chest. It was insane.
Like,
So
am I going to go to prison as a
yeah,
spy?
yeah. I'm just sitting there and they're showing pictures of me in spandex telling
Just
puns, you know what I mean?
no one could be this incompetent. I give you Exhibit A. It's like, I am that incompetent.
Yeah.
Let's do comedy.
And then, yeah, then like getting put on performance, but that's the other thing about working in the corporate world. You can't get fired. It's amazing. I ended up leaving. They put me on performance improvement processes. Then they were like, do you want to leave? I was like, nah, I think I'll just stay and do a bad job.
Let me ask you again. Do you want to leave?
Yeah.
Handing you the pen.
I was like, I'll just wait until I'll wait until I have to leave.
Oh, that's so funny, man. But weren't you smarter than most of the people, though, surely? Because people are thick.
Yeah, but then like it was fun. Like when you're a consultant, you're going into different places and doing different work. Sometimes the jobs were really interesting and really like you get absorbed in them and stuff. But other times, it's fun for the first like week, and then after that, it's like, well, I'm just doing the same boring thing now. And
I think the bargain is, I'm sure we'll get back to the topics, but I think the bargain is I'm prepared to just work all the time, but it's on stuff that I like. But I work 7 days a week all the time, but it's stuff you like. Because Will Kingston, it's funny, but I was talking about I did 5.5 hours recording yesterday, and he goes, "Yeah, mate, just another 2.5, and you'll have a normal job." And
yeah, there's a lot goes.
But my counter to that was, how often are you actually working in the 8 hours at a job? Is it one? Is it 30 minutes? Is it 2 hours? Whereas when you're recording 5.5 hours, you are at work the whole time. You're actually working. How many people in the 8 hour? And I'd still rather do this, but I want to counter how many people in the 9 to 5 are actually working the whole time.
Yeah, and also the amount of preparation that goes into it's like people when I was just a circuit comedian, the amount of people would be like, oh, you're getting 200 quid for 20 minutes. That's £600 an hour. It's like, yeah, but I don't get to do 8 hours a day of this, and also I've got to drive to Blackpool or whatever. And I've got to, and also there's all the time I spent being rubbish at comedy.
Yeah, and it's like I left the house at 12 p.m. I got back at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And I made 150 quid. Do you think that's
yeah.
a good deal? No, that's terrible.
And it's funny, man, if there was just another comedian said to me, like if there's 150 quid on a bar and you could just drive to Leicester and pick it up, you wouldn't do it. But if there's 150 quid and you do a gig, then you'll do it. It's weird. It's weird.
I used to have a thing, and maybe this is why I'm retired. You called me a comedian at the start. I let it pass. I'm retired. But maybe this is why I always wish that the gigs would be cancelled. I had a thing with my mate. Like, so funny. Imagine you're a comedian, and when a gig gets cancelled and you're relieved, especially if they're going to still pay you. You're absolutely relieved.
Yeah. It's the best.
Comedy for 10 years, but every gig was cancelled, and you just got the money every time. So you never ever do a gig. But it's like, are you a comedian or not? It's a kind of a philosophical question. You're just like, I'm loving this. This is a great career. The cancelled comedian.
And there's always those gigs in the calendar, like that just come looming up, and like because you'll have booked, somebody will be like, oh, will you come and do this gig in Devon or whatever? And you're like, yeah, I'll come and do it. But then when it actually gets to the day before, man, you don't want to go do it. Especially having a kid. You know what I mean? Having a kid has really destroyed my desire to go out of the house and shout jokes at people.
Yeah, I hate that feeling of why did I sign up to this? So now I say no to all social events. Because I know when it comes day, I'm like, I don't want to do this. I'm just gonna have to make an excuse. I just say no. Just say no.
So yeah, talking about anarcho tyranny. I think the migrant hotels crisis, the way the government is treating it. I mean, Keir's a legislator, so he thinks he can fix everything through legislation. So when the local council in Epping went to the court and got a court order to stop the migrant hotel being used to house migrants after there's alleged sexual assaults of children and stuff, The government, instead of being like, well, this is the will of the people, they've democratically expressed it, and now they've gone to court to stop it. The government actually took them to court to force them to have a migrant hotel in their community, which, I mean, I thought that was a real shocking sort of overreach of the state. And also, it's so dangerous because it's pushing people to take politics to the streets. As we saw in Ballymena, people have worked out that the only way they can actually get what they want, the politicians won't listen to them. So they have to actually take matters into their own hands, take it to the street, and they use petrol bombs and all the rest of it, which is ugly, dangerous, and shouldn't be happening. But the government seems to want to create that condition.
That's the question, isn't it? And we touched on it earlier, but why would they do this? Do they want to create civil unrest? And many people are concluding they do. I don't know if they do. It's so much as just they can't adjust. They are the Starmer's kind of the perfect representation of what the system is. A kind of a very like rigid person that can only go forward. I call him a dead-eyed shark moving ever forward towards his next grim mechanical task at one point, because that's what the system is. It's like, we believe in this. It's like, yeah, but you see that's going to cause civil unrest. Must go forward. It's like the overreach of it is so insane. As you say, the Home Office appealing that a judge. It's not like they're going against the rule of law. A judge had already said close this hotel. Now, he was a conservative judge, but he was a judge. So the other judge, the Fabian judge, with the background in the Fabian Society and the Labour Lawyers Society and the Matrix Chambers, which has been pro-immigration, he goes, no, you've got to have this hotel open. Meanwhile, Keir Starmer's going, we want to close the hotel. It's like, you just literally said that one has to stay open. He's like, no, but they must be closed in an orderly fashion. So in his mind, and someone was saying this to me, was it Will Kingston? It was like Blair would have just said, okay, yeah, close that thing because it's causing havoc. Yeah. Whereas what Starmer's, the rigid kind of idiot kind of ideologues do, people like Blair, he was a kind of ideologue, but he was much more pragmatic. He only believed in power. And so he would do whatever it took. Whereas Starmer's like, no, we have to close it in an orderly fashion. It's like, yeah, but you've now got the country thinking that the public are completely ignored, completely overridden by corrupt judges, is what the people think, because there's a perceived bias, whether the bias is real or not. And then you're doing the opposite of what you ostensibly want. So this idea, the judge said, well, this will encourage more protests, which was a weird thing of like saying the quiet part out loud. He was sort of saying, if we reward this, people around the country will protest. Maybe, but what's actually happened is you immediately created more protests because there was a protest. The council listened, they shut down the hotel, and that was a correct outcome because it's a completely terrible thing to have that hotel there. The government then forces the hotel to be open again. Lo and behold, the protests start again. So you've done the opposite of your claimed intention. So it's insane on all levels. And it's natural that people will look at this and go, are they deliberately creating civil unrest? You know, the other option is they're just stupid, rigid ideologues who hate the people.
Yeah, which is also really. Which is also a possibility, because I saw another Labour MP, Cat Eccles, called this degenerate natives. She's actually deleted the tweet. I was going to put it up on the screen, but she called British men degenerate natives. Actually, so somebody screenshotted it. I'm going to bring it up on the screen just in case you didn't see it. Share. Is that here we go. Share. There. Can you see that?
This works much better on stream. Oh yeah, I can.
Degenerate native men are the biggest threat to women. I thought this was interesting, her use of the word native, which traditionally has been avoided by the left because they say that only people who've been colonized can be called native. So it's used for, Native Americans, Aborigines, people like that. You can never describe British or European men and women as native. And part of that is to remove any protection from us, from any sort of protection of our own culture. You can't have the Cockneys preserved. Their lands have to be subsumed and handed over to the Bangladeshis. Whereas if the Cockneys were seen as natives, then UNESCO would step in and preserve the dog tracks as World Heritage sites, like they do with the Dagenham River Basin would be treated like the Amazon. But the maybe I'm overstepping with my metaphors there.
Tribes where you're not allowed to put a can of Coke on their island. And if they shoot you with arrows and kill you, people go, that's fair enough. You're not allowed on the island. I was on GB News. I said, "Now hear me out, guys. This arrows thing, it's like why are we? Yeah, we have an absolute reverence for indigenous tribes, but if you say the word indigenous here, you're automatically a Nazi or native, as you say. So
Yeah,
it's a fascinating development that she would say native. Two things I took from it. One is we know Labour because she's a Labour MP, and by the way, she calls herself a cat lady. So if we say that, it's not an insult. It's on her Twitter. One, we know what these MPs think of us, but it's nice to get it out in the open and say like we hate the native population. Thank you, because we knew that, but
yeah,
just good to get it in writing. And even if it's deleted. And number two is like you say, oh, they're using that word, so they're part of. It's sad that we've split into this and that it has to be this a sectarian war. But she's sort of going, yes, that's what it is. Confirmation now in. Thank you for that. So
yeah.
yeah, it's a sort of a mask off moment in those two ways. One that should even use the word, and two that should use it with such disdain.
Yeah, and some of the things that the government is doing is so like just overtly inflammatory. Like the woman who was arrested, I think she might have even been a councillor, arrested for hanging a Union Jack at the top of the steps. So there's that sort of Churchillian image of the steps going up and then the Union Jack coming down over the wall, and that's something. It feels like something that an occupying force would do, the police going up and arresting her and removing the flag like that.
Yeah, as far as I know, she wasn't a councillor, but I think she was there as part of a sort of organization with a reform, someone who was in reform. This was Sarah White, right, who was arrested quite aggressively for having the flag, but they said it wasn't for having the flag. But firstly, did you see the bruises on her arm?
No.
What an interview. Oh, she got horrible bruises all over her arm.
Oh,
Big
geez.
bruises. The kind of thing, if it was like George Floyd, the country would be up in arms, sort of thing. Obviously he was killed or actually probably died of an overdose. But if it was a George, if it was anyone else, one of those things. She has horrible bruises all over her arms. She's like, look, I know what it's like. I don't know if for some reason she's had to restrain people or she knows about that. And she said a little one notch further and it would have broken my arm.
Jeez.
So and look at the bruises, they're horrible. You look how aggressively they did it. Why did they do it? It looked to everyone like it was for having a Union Jack. And by the way, everyone says it's the Union flag. No, it's not the Union flag. It's equally called the Union Jack. Starmer
Yeah.
and Annette Cooper just did it, and I noticed no one said anything to them. Anyway, she had a Union Jack, but she had it outside of the designated protest zone.
The outside of the bit that's demarcated as Britain.
Yeah, incredible, isn't it? And so, because the funny thing is, and as Stephen Barrett pointed out, yes, but what was she doing in that zone? She had the flag. If she's just standing in that zone, presumably not a crime, right?
Yeah.
She has the flag in that zone, that makes it part of the protest. So it is actually the flag that's the catalyst. So this whole idea of a zone as well sort of proves, now it does prove a point that I was speaking to academic agent about, which is he points out protests are allowed by the state. The reason protests don't really do anything, and you'll remember like the Iraq War March, I was actually on it, it did absolutely nothing. One reason is they're by their nature permitted by the state. So interestingly, like this is permitted, but as soon as you go outside of the zone, that's not permitted.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's all a bit technical, but really, the images of clearly completely different policing standards as always. There wasn't a whole lot of kneeling going on. I noticed there was a lot of bruising. She's 5'3", massive bruise.
Yeah.
Didn't see a lot of kneeling. I saw a lot of bullying a small woman.
Yeah, and there's also, as the migrant hotels proliferate, we're being told that they're being shut down, but they're obviously just moving the migrants into HMOs, the flats and houses amongst the native population, which is probably going to be worse, to be honest, because at least in the migrant hotels they've got some sort of security, some sort of oversight, and maybe they've got people going in teaching them about British values and customs, so don't touch the kids. And yes, they're moving them out, and we're seeing more things. Like there was the in Canary Wharf, there's the migrant who walked into someone's home, and it was some sort of sex attack. Like the daughter of the woman walked in, and this guy's like touching his crotch or getting the woman to put. I don't know if she had dementia or something, but it's like an old woman, and there's that amazing photo where he looks like the Welsh choir boy. He really, the same kind of look. And the daughter was arrested for apprehending the migrant. And the daughter was not white. For all the people that say that, oh, this is just racist white people. It's like, well, no, this is all Brits of all shades and origins and stuff don't like this stuff on their doorstep. And we keep seeing these incidents where, migrants commit some sort of egregious crime. Nothing happens to the migrant, or they get arrested, but they're bailed, and they get a softball treatment by the system. But anybody who dares apprehend them, dares to get in the way of their crime spree, is absolutely punished.
And that's the anarcho-tyranny again. It's always you saw with that girl. Now, I don't know what happened with that girl, but the Scottish girl with the axe, and you heard that she got arrested.
Yeah.
Anytime you try and do anything, but I don't know what the full details of that are, but it's a classic anarcho-tyranny thing. And by the way, just a quick note on the police who were treating Sarah White, I believe her name was, so brutally. They are such idiots because they are still English. I looked at a picture in Epping, and the police they're all English.
Right.
They looked English they're from Epping, basically. And you go, you're still part of the same, you're still being raised like any English person, and
Yeah.
you're still going to the day that you quit as a police officer, or the time that you're on holiday and you do something, or when you're not in your capacity as a police officer, you're still a second class citizen, and your people are still being gradually sort of becoming second class and wiped out. So I just think the short-sightedness of being police at this point in England is also incredible. Like, why are you attacking this woman who's obviously on your side broadly? You know what I mean?
And I think, the country's sort of gradually spiraling towards, almost more than a political revolution. I understand, 4 years' time, it's incredibly likely that reform will get in with like every seat, pretty much every seat in the country except Brighton. Whereas, which is where Angela Rayner's moving to make sure she still has a seat. But I think something bad is going to happen before then. And the police and people in authority who are complicit in doing pretty horrific things against the native population should be mindful of what can happen to people who do horrific things against the native population when there's a revolution. And I know a lot of people have spoken about civil war. I think what's happening with Britain's financial situation, so there's a debt crisis. Our cost of borrowing is spiking up well over 5%, which is an insane amount of money. Historically it's been very low, which is why we borrowed so much, and now we're in so much trouble trying to pay it back. So Rachel Reeves has got this £50 billion black hole that she can't fill. She needs to fill it because she won't be able to borrow anymore because markets won't trust that Britain's going to be able to pay it back. She can't pay it back because Labour are owned by all the recipients of the borrowing and spending. So, at the moment we borrow lots of money to give fat people free cars, and we give immigrants new sneakers and phones and all the rest of it. But, everybody gets a taste. The unions get their juicy salaries. The public sector get their gold-plated pensions. OAPs get the state pension that ratchets up every year. So everybody gets, Gordon Brown tried to make everybody a recipient of the welfare state, so everybody would want to keep the welfare state, and Labour would never lose power. So it's going to be impossible for her to take anything away from anybody. Like, if you take away, like they tried to take away a few, token things before, like the winter fuel allowance and some other, welfare reforms, and all the Labour MPs were like, "Yo, that's so mean. We need to tax the rich." You can't tax the rich because they'll go. They're rich. They can afford plane tickets out of here. You know what I mean? The only reason any of us are here is because we can't get out. So I think we've got the perfect situation. We've got this 50 billion black hole. There could be, and we've got, cultural degeneracy. We've got the sort of cucking of the native population. This is quite similar to 1930s Germany and the Weimar Republic. All we're missing is this financial calamity, and I think it's months away.
Hyperinflation, yeah, and the money in the wheelbarrows and the queues for bread or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Well, it's always my weak point, economics, but I do wonder, if we had a financial crash, would that trigger an emergency election? Some people think Labour won't get to 2029. Some people think that's nonsense. But like you say, the borrowing cost. I mean, I heard a figure a while ago, something like just servicing our debt is 100 billion a year, just the interest on it.
Yeah.
And then another thing you mentioned is the benefits bill that wasn't, it was blocked by Labour, as you say. That was going to save something like 5 billion a year when the cost of health-related benefits is probably going to rise to, again, from memory, 100 billion a year by 2030. So you go, this was a drop in the ocean anyway, and they still wouldn't let them do it. And this was a key difference between the Blair era, when he had control of the party. He had that massive majority, but Labour have this majority now, but it's this loveless landslide, isn't it? And it was a different political climate. We didn't have as much sectarianism. You didn't have MPs who were, just winning by 6 votes against someone whose whole policy platform is hating Israel or whatever.
Yeah.
And so now he had a much more stable situation. But now you have a situation where Labour can't actually do what it wants because of its backbench. And even when it does do something sensible, McSweeney in behind the scenes, Blair behind the scenes, they can't actually get away with anything. The only thing they're going to try and do is the Blair ID cards are back, I see.
Oh God, yeah. That's another thing that's, they're sort of telling us, oh, well, the only way we can deal with the small boats, I mean, we could go down to the beach with machine guns, but the only way we can deal with the small boats is to introduce these ID cards that, these guys aren't going to carry ID. They can't even keep a passport in their pocket while they cross the channel. How are they going to keep an ID card in their pocket? So, but they're like, oh, we need digital ID cards. It's like, man, you don't even ask for any identification. You don't log them on any database or, record any of their crimes or history or anything when they come into the country. How's this gonna change anything? It's only going to be used against the native population. Now, you're going to have a digital ID card that, your access to banking or your access to oxygen can be turned off if you say the wrong thing about the people coming across with no ID.
Yeah, you vote for the wrong candidate because it's going to be tied to your voting ID. It checks you in that you're voting. It knows who you voted for, so you voted for the wrong candidate, so you can't get an Uber. You know what I mean? You've had your monthly steak, so you've got to eat the fake meat and the bugs for the next.
And ironically, if you can't get an Uber, that's going to deny the person you were complaining about a chance of making some money.
Yeah, true. You're right, though. The migrants won't do it. We'll all have to do it. It will be pure anarcho-tyranny once again. And on borrowing, I just wanted to add as well. I don't know if you want to get on to Rayner, but Kemi, although borrowing is so important, there was that bizarre moment in PMQs where Kemi had Rayner on the ropes, really has to resign. And Kemi abandoned it to start talking about borrowing. And it was one of my
yeah.
My theory is she's just an engineer, only does stuff by the book, loves to be in the Tory party, kind of like, like those girls that love school that got she came over to Britain. She hated Britain at first. She was treated terribly, and she was used to a much higher status in Nigeria.
Yeah.
And then this is the story, and anyway, it may not be perfectly true, but she then discovered the Tory party and was like, oh, this is my thing. This is my home. She loves the Tory party. So she's an engineer. So she's a kind of creature of Westminster in that sense. She loves all that kind of stuff. So to me, when she's very by the book, rigid, asking about borrowing, whereas anyone with political instincts and in touch with people would be like, Rayner, you've got to go, and then hammer it for the whole session.
Yeah, she's not a natural politician, and she's not good at the sort of blood and guts getting in there. The dispatch box, eviscerating your opponent. Well, she's not good at a lot of things. And I sort of feel like 10 years ago, if she'd come to the front of the Tory party, it would have been like, oh, diversity, amazing, look at this, blah blah blah. But now it's like, how did you get that job? I mean, people have got people are a bit cynical.
She said for merit, but yeah, that is a thing, because you had Cameron's A-list, you had lots of people there who clearly didn't have merit, who were clearly diversity. We've seen that. So now, of course, it creates cynicism. Yeah, I know she was the wrong person at the wrong time. I said generic, but hey.
And finally enough, the Angela Rayner situation, which is spiraling out of control for Angela, that's going to affect Rachel Reeves' ability to put up taxes. So she wants to put up taxes because she's noticed there is still some economic activity in the country. She wants to completely wipe it out, spray the weed killer of high tax all over our economy. But Rayner dodging, or apparently, I think she admitted to dodging her taxes, and she's referred herself to the parliamentary watchdog or whatever. That really puts a spanner in the works, because Reeves can't be like, we're going to put up your taxes. And it's like, well, what about Rayner's taxes? She doesn't even have to pay them.
Yeah, it's a bit, whether she admitted to dodging, she claims that she was following legal advice at the time, that she didn't have to pay this stamp duty because...
Yeah, where was she getting it from? Darius.
I know, yeah. I mean, you do wonder about the advice, if that's the truth. But yes, it's very strange. It's a complicated situation where she set up this trust for her son, and therefore was it her first residence, and all this kind of... It's almost too boring to get into the details of it, but because she's been hammering people so much about this stuff, like Nadeem Zahawi, who said, well, did you think about my children at the time? Like, she absolutely hammered everyone. She's like, one rule for them, one rule for the rest of it, all this kind of stuff. She's like, it's got all this kind of. She's just hammered everyone so brutally about what was that? There's that video where she's going, "That's £1 less in the exchequer if you don't pay the proper what are you supposed to?" And it's just like, and so now she's the ultimate hypocrite. Apparently,
Yeah, because she was crying on Sky News, and she was saying like, "Oh, all I was trying to do was provide a financial future for my family," and it's like that's what we're all trying to do. You think I'm trying to raise other families out there? No, I care about my family. I care about my daughter. I know every penny the government takes off me and spunks up the wall on useless bollocks is money that I can't use to secure my family's future. It's she's a Tory. They're all Tories when it comes to their own money. Except, a Tory from, 30 years ago, not one of the new Tories who also wants to waste money on ridiculous gib-gabs for whatever.
They're all old aristocratic Tories.
Yeah.
From the 50s. Yeah. She was also in a battle with the NHS, wasn't she? A legal battle where she's
got a big payout.
So it's not very like Labour either, is it really? It's absolutely hilarious.
Man, that's the funny thing, man. You get this in Scotland. Every single junkie you talk to in Scotland is suing the NHS. They get like taken in. There's even there's a guy, I won't say his name because he's a nice guy, but he's a comedian, and his brother is suing the NHS. And it's always like they went in after injecting themselves with like George Floyd brand fentanyl or whatever, and they were going to lose a leg, so the NHS did something, but then also used the wrong color of elastoplast. So then they sue the NHS and get some payout. Every single Scottish junkie sues the NHS. It's insane. And Angela Rayner. It's more of a marker of being in the underclass than anything else.
It really is working class after all. Yeah. That's the big thing. They always like, she's working class. That was what stars. They always bring it out. Woman working class. She's crying, for Christ's sake. It's like, so like, right, like that was like Drogba Cunley meme, wasn't it? Like it's like the new ideology is women crying.
Yeah, women crying ocracy. Yeah. With Rachel Reeves.
I did feel a little bad for Reeves. I didn't feel bad for Rayner. Reeves is clearly, as we established with Will on my podcast, a nicer person. Because if you look at when Reeves is crying in the parlor, this is Rayner. I am the ice queen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Rayner's crying. Reeves is like looking across, touching. He's like, "You're okay." You're like, "Oh, just a nicer person then."
Yeah. Talking about conflict in parties, it looks like the far left party, what are they called? I think they're just called Your Party at the moment. The Corbyn and Sultana party sounds like a Kellogg's cereal. Well, it's fallen apart over the trans bollocks because they've tried to bring in. I mean, I guess the far left and Islamists always align because they just want to tear down Western civilization and destroy capitalism and bring in. I mean, the far left want to bring in their socialist utopia with all the vegan beat poetry cafes and queer evenings, and the Islamists want to bring in their Islamic theocracy and kill all the socialists. And after they I mean, in Iran in 1979 they did overthrow the Shah, and then the socialists were like, well, can we have our queer cafes now? And the Islamists were like, no, we're going to kill you. So I mean, hopefully we'll see that someday in Britain. It would, it'd be nice to clear out a bit of the socialists, but that's starting to tear that party around. I saw I can't even remember which one it was. One of the independent Islamic MPs, the Gaza MPs, battling with Zara.
Wasn't it? Oh, I thought you meant Adnan Hussein versus India. That's a different thing, isn't it?
No, that is what I meant.
That's the left against each other in general.
Yeah. So it's already teared. Like India Willoughby was like, "How dare you say I'm a man?" And Adnan Hussein was like, "You're kind of a man."
Yeah, he was like, or he or she, whatever we're saying, was like, it was like, what if I said you're not a real Brit? And it's like, you're both right.
Yeah.
It's like, I can solve it.
We're making progress here, guys. You got the Labour politician referring to us as natives, and the left saying trans aren't real women. And
hopefully this is going on the Patreon. Everything I just said there. Like, I don't know. I didn't know what we're calling them, but isn't it incredible? Like, that just exposed everything, that one exchange where, and this is a bit of a problem for the liberals, the sort of anti-woke liberals, and some of them are friends of mine, but it's like they're very happy to say you're not a woman and be very militant about that. But are they going to say, but when we get to like Rishi Sunak's not English, which I agree doesn't have to be your whole life obsession, but he's not English. And if you're making me call him English, you are doing the same as making me call a man a woman. And I'm not going to do it because I believe in the truth.
Although I think Rishi Sunak does more of a job. I mean, I guess if you're going to be specific and technical about ethnicity and stuff, I guess he's not, or he's Indian English, because I think it's ridiculous that Rishi Sunak isn't seen as English and I am, because I sort of feel like it goes with accent. You know what I mean? Regardless of what the technical thing is, it goes with accent.
Yeah, he likes Southampton. No, he's definitely one of the. If you were going to make your case, you'd use him because he's definitely one of the most English-seeming people possible, and you can make a strong case that he's British. But I just won't say he's English because the truth matters. And why does India celebrate when he's prime minister? Why does he sort of quite often make statements about India? And he's a Hindu. So it's just like, guys, come on. I just want the truth, and it is important because it's the same as this women thing. Why can't you just say it to be polite? Because it's not the truth, and we don't know where that will lead. So
well, yeah, because that's a good point. Because there's a comedian. I won't embarrass him by saying his name. He's Bangladeshi origin, and I always used him as an example. He's sort of like Rishi Sunak. He's quite a posh guy, nice guy, drinks booze and stuff. He's Muslim, but very, very culturally English. I always sort of used him as an example of, no, look, these guys, some of these guys integrate perfectly and are is fine, just an absolute asset to the country. And then, as soon as something like Gaza happens, he completely aligns with his sort of tribal, origin attitudes. And there's no sort of, it's not like a sort of a native Brit might take a more nuanced look.
Yeah, who did Rishi align with when it kicked off between India and Pakistan? He's not going to be neutral, is he? I mean, it's just obvious.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest. I'm saying it doesn't have to be a whole obsession. Lord Frost on my podcast called it weird.
Yeah.
You don't have to be like obsessed with it, but I also won't lie. That's all.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think it's, there's other hills to die on as well. And also, I think, if we're going to have a workable future, I think there's got, some people on the right are like, we need to deport everybody. It's like, that's not going to happen. That's not going to be workable.
Some people, yeah. Look, this stuff is just where we've ended up. No one wanted this, but it's like, if you're going to go there, if you're going to say we're evil the whole time.
Yeah.
To be fair, they have pushed us there because it's like, we weren't thinking about any of this in the 90s. We were just like, we didn't think about race. We actually did think it was solved and all that kind of stuff. Then you went on and on about how evil white people were the whole time. And it's like, eventually we've just gone, all right, well, now we're going to have to define what everyone is, and we're back into race wars. Well done, lads. But when you say that the right is obsessed with it, who else is obsessed? Is the New Statesman. Did you see that cover, The Age of Deportation? I was like, the New Statesman's really on board. They've got like a load of people going onto some sort of big carrier, like some sort of aircraft carrier or something, and it says The Age of Deportation. Mass expulsions will transform what it means to be British. And you're like, I don't remember New Statesman being that based, but they're on board.
Yeah.
I think they want it on some level. I was thinking about it. I was looking at this cover going, why would you legitimize this point of view? Yeah. And I was thinking two things came to mind. Well, one just said it's actually three. One is just it's kind of part of the regime and they've decided we have to do some deportations. Another was they want this on some level because option A, they've been sick of just LARPing against an imaginary threat. It's like, finally, we've got something to be against, mass deportations. Well, my more sinister one was like they want it in some sort of sordid, where they want to be degraded or like, oh, you want to deport me? I don't know. I was like, why would the New Statesman on that cover? That was my Freudian analysis. I've got no idea.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of similar to the sort of treatment in the grooming gangs. I think we can all recognize that some immigration is great. Like Japanese guys coming in, guys from Hong Kong, guys from Europe, from culturally similar brother countries, immigration from civilized places, basically.
Everyone likes the Japanese. Like, no one's on about like, oh, there's too many Japanese. That's never really been said, right?
Oh man, it's fantastic. And Japan is now opening its borders, and there's a lot of sort of resentment about that in Japan at the moment. But then if you've got guys coming in from the Horn of Africa, I mean, like, man, like, how is this going to benefit us culturally, economically, anything? We're just importing people that, as a group, we're going to have to look after and are going to, not be culturally assimilable. It doesn't make any sense. And I think the left are recognizing that, but they can't come out and say that because they've got to be the nice, kind people. And they've, their whole identity and ideology is based on, diversity is great. So they're hoping other people do it. but they'll still moan about it.
That's interesting. Yeah. Another fascinating group to watch is what I'm calling the anti-woke liberals, the kind of classical liberals. One of them the other day put up this long thing about his girlfriend getting harassed by a migrant. And of course, I don't want to see that happen. But I did notice he said in the post, look, I was glad we dealt with the racism of the previous generation, and we all this, and I was pro-immigration, but this has gone too far. And I just sort of maybe slightly provocatively said, if the liberalism that led you here, of what use was the liberalism?
Yeah, yeah.
It's really angry, sort of patronizing reply to me, and I just binned him off because it was like he was telling me, he was like, thought I'd never heard of like Locke or something. Like he was speaking to me like an idiot rather than like a
Yeah.
dude. And anyway, guy was an idiot, but his premise there, his premise is there to me is that there's a right amount of liberalism and there's a right amount of disdain for the prior generation and calling them racist.
Yeah.
And there's a right amount of immigration. And maybe there's a right amount of immigration. You have to have an immigration policy. But this idea that, like, yeah, I also said the previous generation were racist, and I still believe that, but I don't like what's happening now. It's like, but where's the line then? What about examining the principles that brought you there? Maybe
Yeah.
it wasn't a great thing calling the previous generation racist. Maybe they weren't. Maybe they were just actually decent English people. Maybe they knew something.
And making the sort of racism this complete overarching the worst of all crimes. I get that it's unpleasant and is rude, but it's so that the idea of racism is so unevenly applied. Like Kehinde Andrews can write a book called The Psychosis of Whiteness. They can run training courses for public sector workers on how to abolish whiteness, and the academics behind it aren't like saying, "Oh no, whiteness is just a concept." They're like, "No, we literally need to abolish the white race." If somebody said that about another race, they'd go to jail. It's insane. But yeah, we should probably start wrapping up now because I've only got 7 minutes of the free Zoom left.
This is fine.
As Frost said to Nixon.
Yeah, this is fine for me, but how is it going to be when you've got big guests on? You can't tell that to David.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna do like proper ones. I'm gonna book out the Westminster studio for a day and do some serious podcasting. Okay, well, Nick, thanks for talking to me. And you've got a Substack, you've got nickdixon.net, and you've got your YouTube as well.
Yeah, my YouTube is Nick Dixon, so that's very easy to find. My Substack with many hundreds of many people paying now, which is great because it helps me live and eat.
Yeah.
nickdixon.net, and of course at NJDixon on Twitter. Thank you very much.
Cool. Nice one, man. Well, I'll speak to you soon.
All right, cheers.
Take care, man.